Last professional broadcaster, Sam Roberts, here at the glorious Ringside Fest for Ringside Collectibles with the infamous Bill Miekina, head elite designer from Mattel. Is that right?
That works.
That works, right?
That works.
Representing the elite squad, which somehow I am not in, but Kathy Kelly is in. But we won't even address that, will we?
I'd prefer not to.
Instead, what we're going to address is your questions. We've been collecting questions from all the members at the message boards at WrestlingFigures.com or WrestlingFigs.com. And I figured I'll see if I can make you sweat a little bit.
It won't be hard. I sweat very easily.
That's what I've heard.
Even with the hat on. So.
Let's start with this one.
Sure.
Are there any other elite Shawn Michaels figures in the works after what we've seen here, which is the Ultimate Edition Shawn Michaels?
Very likely. Shawn Michaels is a performer that we can make a lot of figures on with a lot of different looks, a lot of different sculpts, a lot of varieties. So when it comes time to include like a high-level legend talent in a lineup, Shawn Michaels is always one that is always right near the top of choices. So it's very likely, as long as we have the license, sure.
I know you're an NXT guy. What about an NXT coach, Shawn Michaels?
That's always a possibility.
Is it still safe to say the retro line is just on hiatus and not dead?
It's not dead. It is on hiatus.
Okay.
I don't know. I'm sure if the status changes, I'll know, and then I could release the information that there's been a change. But right now, it is on hiatus.
On hiatus. Since NXT is now on the USA Network, does that mean we'll see more of those wrestlers in mainline elite waves?
I don't think because it's been on the USA, we were always planning on having NXT talent in the elite lineups, because a lot of times that's where you get your new talent. If you're someone that only buys a figure of like one guy, one figure per person, or one male or female, with NXT, that's where you're getting the people that I already have a figure of this person, but I don't have this person. And 9 times out of 10, that character is debuting in NXT. So yeah, going forward, NXT talent will continue to be well represented in the elite line.
I would also have to imagine if you start working on everybody when they're in NXT, it makes it a lot easier to get a figure out quicker once they debut on the main roster.
Yes, in a lot of instances, it'll be planned as an NXT, and by the time it's on the store shelves, they're on the main rosters. So,
Ghostbusters, it seemed to do better than most of us initially. Well, most of them, I thought it would do well, but most people initially expected. Are there any plans for other waves or crossovers with pop culture licenses? Obviously, besides the Masters of the Universe, which we've seen.
Yeah, Masters of the Universe is our big push for 2020 in that category of like mashups. Ghostbusters, I think Hasbro now has that Master Toy license, so we were only able to get out one series of it, but I'm glad we were able to get out that one before they took over, and good luck to them with that license. It's something, even with like the zombies was sort of a, if something looks like it makes sense and we think we can, get some legs under it, then we will invest in it.
How about this one? The Best of Attitude Era. Has that line been canceled, or did it just run its course?
It kind of ran its course. It's something where if there were future considerations for that line, we would work them in elsewhere.
Yeah. Since we saw Christian and Viscera at Comic-Con, and there's a Viscera on display here at Ringside Fest, is there a chance that we'll get more figures of Ministry of Darkness members like the Acolytes or Midian?
I'm not sure if Midian's under a merchandise deal, so as long as they're under a merchandise deal, like I'm not sure what Midian's status is, and I'm not sure exactly what everyone's status is. If they're under merchandise deals, they'll be considered for inclusion in the line.
Hypothetically, if Midian was under a deal, would the priority be Midian, Phineas Godwin, or Naked Midian?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I would. My heart says Hog Farmer.
Okay.
But you need a Henry O. Godwin as well to sort of like make it work. Naked Midian, I could see I could see people in our company maybe not wanting to have that release as a figure.
With removable fanny pack.
Yeah, we'd run into issues there. So maybe by default it would be Midian.
Will we ever get the light heavyweight championship, or I guess the WCW Cruiserweight Championship as well?
It's possible. It's just finding out the right talent to include it with. And so when we do a flashback talent or a Legends talent that held that title, that's something that we would consider.
Mm-hmm. For both?
For both.
Okay. Are we going to get Kyle O'Reilly and Bobby Fish new elites, since we got Elite 71 and Elite 72, Adam Cole and Roderick Strong?
The logic would seem to dictate that.
I didn't write these. Is Jeff Jarrett finally available, or did he still not sign a Legends deal?
I haven't heard an update, so it's one of those situations where if I hear word that I can work on Jeff Jarrett, like, work will start that day.
That's right, Slapnuts. What's the status of the Retro Fest line?
That has run its course.
What was your favorite figure that you worked on and saw released this year, besides Asuka and Nakamura in red pants?
Okay, I think that's
It says there. It says that's. You know.
Okay, there might be some mocking behind that question,
Right. I don't like it.
but I don't know. It seems to follow the Kyrie saying, just because there's so much work involved in that and getting that to a level where we could, release that and, sort of meet the cost. There's a budget for each wave, and making sure that each wave sort of balances the budget with a figure that complex with so much deco and new tooling. Being able to figure out how to do that, it was a lot of work, but I think at the end of the day, the result is one of the best figures we have on the display here. So,
I would agree. Why has it taken so long to release a new R-Truth figure, and is it coming soon?
a lot of it depends on TV exposure, and for the past few years, R-Truth really hasn't been on TV a lot until like the 24/7 run with the 24/7 title. So something like that is something that will increase his likelihood to be included in the line.
And it's coming soon?
Logic would seem to dictate.
Okay. Any new NWO figures planned to come out in the next year or so?
Nothing in the next few months, just based on what we have on the display. But we're always, if the opportunity presents itself and it makes sense. I know it's kind of like the generic answer, but like nothing immediate.
Nothing planned right now.
Nothing planned immediately.
Yeah. Okay. What's your favorite and least favorite part of the design process?
My favorite moment is always when you get like the first. It's called an SAS sample, which is like the first sample with the full deco, and that's the one we evaluate to see if it's if there's any mistakes or changes you want to make. And when you get one that's like again using the Kyrie saying, and it's a really complex figure, and the first sample from the factory was perfect. Like when you get something like that where it's almost like Christmas. It's like this, and I think like you're responsible for like willing this into existence in some way. That's the greatest feeling. The worst feeling I think is just the cost challenges are always tricky. They're no fun, but it's an unavoidable part of the process. We're in this to make money for Mattel. I have to make a certain amount of money for the company, and balancing that with like my want to include everything with the figure, with being a Mattel employee whose job. And I'm getting paid to make a product that makes money for the company. So
yeah, that makes sense. If you're making an Elite Matt Riddle, will it come with removable flip-flops?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it will. Don't worry, it will.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be a waste of that articulation if you couldn't.
Yeah, you'd have to. I mean, it's an important part of his entrance gear.
Yeah. Can you speak on the Ultimate Edition character selection process?
Sure. We try to pick like main event talent with the widest possible appeal, and then one character would be from the present day, and one character would be from sort of like a Legends or a flashback sort of. Just because we know there are people that only buy, the classic talent, and there's only people that buy present day. So we want to make sure that we're covering all as many bases as possible when we release those, because they're $30. Investment in a figure. It's not an insignificant amount of money. We want to make sure that not only is it the highest quality we can provide, but it appeals to the broadest customer base.
Are the Elite 2-packs going to be continuing?
They are being developed for 2020 as a continuation. We have the AJ and Finn one that's on sale now, and there are at least 2 others planned for this year. I think there might be a third.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
For this year, for 2019?
Yeah. Oh, no, for 2020. Yeah, this year, for me, this year is 2020.
Okay, gotcha.
Everything here is 2020.
Gotcha. NXT guys like Matt Riddle and Keith Lee are getting basic figures first before they get Elites.
Yes.
Is that pattern going to continue, or could some first-time NXT characters get Elites in the line?
It's going to be on a case-by-case basis. Yeah. Like, there's some talent that the basics designer has like a real fondness for. So if he is like, I would, in the instance like that, it's like, I would let him do his work first, and then there's other characters that are more complex that maybe need a little bit more tooling or work. That those would sort of, I would have priority on those characters. So it's more like just depending on when you're filling out a lineup, who's on TV, and does it make sense to do this as a basic first or as an elite.
Are there any new play sets in the works?
I know of at least one. I'm not two actually, yeah, but I'm not sure if I'm allowed to talk about them.
But there are two that are at least in the works.
Yeah, two play sets.
Wow, cool. Is there any progress with us getting WCW titles for our figures?
They're still on their way. It's just, again, it's finding the talent to put it with. There was a situation where I wanted to do a figure with a WCW title that suddenly we no longer have rights to because
The figure or the title?
the performer.
Gotcha.
He's now on a banner hanging above this place, which that'll be an inside joke to anyone who's actually here.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had something planned, and then that he went to somewhere else, and plans changed.
Yeah. And you ruined it for all of us.
He really ruined it for me, at least.
Yeah. Will Mattel do any more of the best of sets?
Yeah, that's we those best of sets are a good way to make sure that the characters that have like the most crossover appeal, that like maybe a mom who's buying a figure who maybe doesn't have like as deep a knowledge of WWE, like the entire roster, but they know who the top people are.
Right.
Making sure that those characters are always in stock in stores on shelf, so that we can get the people that want to collect the whole roster and the people that want to just like sort of like skim the top.
Yeah, that makes sense. Why did Elite Top Talent 2020 get pushed back so far?
That I don't know. I don't know all the particulars on that one. I don't have the answers to that one.
How are the Ultimate Edition figures selling for Mattel? Is that line going to continue into 2020?
We're developing a full line for 2020 on Ultimates. So as long as they keep selling, we'll keep putting them out.
And is it still going to be two a quarter, more or less?
It's two a quarter.
Yeah. We got a Build-A-Figure Danny Davis recently. It's right here on display. Are there any more Build-A-Figure sets planned?
Probably the WrestleMania WrestleMania Elite sets will probably be Build-A-Figures. It's a good way to, encourage people to buy the whole set, but it's also just a way to get characters out that we might not otherwise necessarily get out. Yeah. There is, because you're including Build-A-Figure, there are some accessories that kind of have to not be included in those, but it's a balance.
Yeah. As of late, we have been seeing the return of cloth accessories, which I think people are very happy about. Can we expect this trend to continue?
Oh, I don't think it was so much as a return. I mean, I've always included soft goods in the line for 10 years. So yeah, I mean.
But we see, for instance, like on both the Finn Balor and the Anvil, yes, we've got fabric jackets instead of plastic jackets.
The Finn Balor, the reason that one is a cloth jacket now is because the previous leather jackets had like a lot of surface detail, like the padding and stuff, and I didn't want to lose that on the figures, so it was done as a plastic jacket to be able to include that detail. The jacket he wore here is like a smoother jacket, so it was something where I was able to do it as a soft good and still be accurate. Like I try to use the most accurate way possible to recreate something. So if something is like a robe, chances are that's going to be a soft good. But if it's if it's something like Aleister Black, right, with a lot of surface detail, that's always going to be a molded piece. Mm-hmm. It does get kind of tricky when you get into leather jackets that have a lot of detail, because sometimes the sleeves lock into place. But as we're showing with, again, I always keep coming back to the Kyrie Sane. We're finding new ways to maybe do something where if they have a signature pose and an entrance, like Sasha Banks has the legit boss on our new upcoming Ringside exclusive, we're actually doing the jacket as a molded part, but the arms are pre-posed, so you can pose or doing the legit boss pose. So we're learning and evolving and just figuring out like what are new ways we can do this.
Yeah. Bayley just turned heel.
Yes.
Realistically, how long do you think it'll be before we get a heel Bayley?
It's going to be longer than it would have if she would have kept the ponytail. I know that for sure.
That complicates things, huh?
It did complicate things, yeah. But I think in the end, the patients will be rewarded because when something like that happens, it's like, okay, that's kind of figure worthy. We should probably get on top of that as soon as possible.
How quickly, I mean, I'm assuming you've already started, but how quickly did you start working on a Bailey when she changed her look kind of dramatically?
The Monday after.
Yeah. That's awesome. How many looks will China have? We see the first one on display here, the prototype, unpainted. How many different looks is China going to have?
I mean, we have a bunch of looks that we want to do on the figure. It's determining how many of those we can get out, within the time period, and a lot of it also kind of depends on, how long we have the license.
Yeah.
So if we have the license for the next, let's just say 20 years, we could put out a China a year. There's enough outfits there. Probably won't, but we'll. But as long as we have the license, there's multiple different looks that we want to get to. So this will not be the only China. So if that's kind of like what the gist of the question is, that's not the case.
This past year, there was no SummerSlam set, and it got moved into Elite 68.
Yes.
Will there be a SummerSlam wave in 2020?
Yes, I think there is a Elite wave that will be SummerSlam themed this year.
Okay, but
similar to how 68 was this year.
Meaning that it will be one of the Elite sets, not its own separate SummerSlam
Yes.
set. Okay. Since the Elimination Chamber playset came out, will other playsets like Hell in a Cell come out with exclusive figures as well?
That one's probably gonna be a little bit more difficult. A lot of those sets were developed for Toys R Us, and then with Toys R Us no longer being there, it's difficult to place playsets of that size and cost. So it's not out of the question, but it's a lot more difficult now that Toys R Us is no longer operating, if I'm being honest.
How has the feedback been for the Chase figures in Elites and Basics? Will they continue, and any other plans for other assortments to have Chase figures?
The plan is to never make it impossible to find a figure, but sometimes stuff happens that, when you have an original plan, like a slight deviation here and a slight deviation here and a slight deviation here, and then suddenly things are way off course.
Yeah. And I would imagine the amount of figures that get pumped out, when one thing goes off course, it screws up a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's something, last minute changes or something happens where this is the only roster of action figures where you're kind of dealing with real people, and real people's stories change a lot more than something that's like, precisely scripted. Mm-hmm. So there's always things where just like a little bit off here and a little bit off here and a little bit off here, and then suddenly, whoa, we're way off from where when we planned this out, and then we're here and we're supposed to be here.
Finally, this is it. Is getting the dilapidated boat back into an Elite line your greatest accomplishment of the year?
I think it's one of them, especially when we considered, we spent the tooling dollars on a big deluxe play set, and then it kind of went away. It's like the opportunity to bring it back was something that unexpected, but unexpectedly great. Yeah. So I'm glad it happened.
Well, thank you, Bill Miekina, and thank all of you at the Wrestling Figs message boards for submitting these wonderful questions. We're here at Ringside Fest, having a great time.